Pretty funny watching these bees, how they like hover over these flowers, like, oh, not that one. No, no.
Hi, everyone. We're just waiting on Judy to join the Zoom. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time to be here. She should be showing up quite soon. And hopefully we'll get this meeting started. I don't see her yet in the admission area. So just a couple of housekeeping points, and I'll go through it again in another minute or so if we get a few more participants. So I'm asking everybody if you could, if you have a question for Judy, if you can open up, you should see a chat. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you can open up a chat icon and I'll get the messages. And if you are okay, what I was going to do is I'll unmute you and I will turn on your video and you can ask Judy your question. But just send me a message in the chat so I know that you'd like to ask her a question directly. I hope that sounds okay. And again, we're still waiting for Judy. I don't see her in the Zoom meeting yet. We're just going to give her another minute or two. But again, thank you very much for coming and to the chat with Judy Stahl, who's running for LD1 as Arizona State. Oh, there's Judy now. Hang on. Go.
Hello.
Hi, Judy.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to get onto a Google Meets link. This is me on a plate. Thank God I've got all my tech savvy folks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming. I just want to make sure I can see you. I've got your video. I haven't unvideoed you. I've not stopped your video.
Okay, let me see whether or not whether I've got something going on here that would prevent it.
Yeah, I see you live for video and you're not muted, obviously. I can hear you fine. I'm just wondering if there's something.
I've probably got something going on here, Natalie. Let me see if I can figure it out. Oh, you know what? I'm going to turn this off. I bet this is it. Let's see whether I show up now. Oh, do I show up now? No. Stop video, start video. There I am.
There you go. I can see you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. I just want to see if there's anybody else. I don't see anybody else in the waiting room. So thank you very much, Judy, for participating. I was just going through a couple of housekeeping points. So first of all, I want to thank you for attending and to this conversation hosted by Black Mountain News and Black Mountain Democrats and Friends. And I'm asking everybody to, if they want to ask you a direct question, to open up the chat box at the bottom of their screen and send me a message, and I will activate the video and voice so they can ask you a question.
Great.
And we'll do it that way. Anna has just joined the Zoom. Okay, so I'm keeping an eye for anybody else that is joining a little bit later. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, all right, so we've got some participants and I think we should get started.
Great.
So you are running for LD1, Arizona State Representative. Can you tell me what made you decide to run for this particular seat and if you've ever run for any public office before?
So it's a well-asked question. I have not run for public office before, Natalie. I have been the past national president of my professional association, the American Massage Therapy Association, which now has around 100,000 members. So it's no small potatoes in terms of that membership. But running for president of the AMTA is extremely different from running for public office. This is my first time running for public office. The reason why I'm running as my first attempt, my first go at public office, running for the Arizona State House of Representatives, is because I do have experience working with the state legislature, actually both with the Senate and the House, when I worked early in this century to facilitate, and I was the point person to create licensure for my profession, for the massage therapy profession in Arizona. And during the 7 years that I went through that process, I learned a tremendous amount, and I really enjoyed the experience. It was, as anyone who's been involved in politics or trying to get anything passed knows, it was exasperating at times, and felt like things happened that were sort of devious. You know, there were things that happened that it was like, wait, that's not fair. Yet what I know is that that's actually how it works. So after that process was complete and we got the law passed, I took a big break from everything for a while. I had been really over busy at that point in my life. And in recent years, I have been so concerned about the changes that I have seen take place in my home community of Prescott, where I've lived for over 28 years, where for so long we all seemed to get along and we're raising our children and all seem to be unified in doing things for the betterment of the community. But then I noticed a change. Actually, I noticed it mostly around 2016 when I saw some really strange things happening in the Republican Party and who they were nominating for the presidency. But when I think about it now, things had been changing for a while. There was a point in time when the Tea Party really took hold around 2010, and things had started to change here around then. And as a Democrat living in this district, it had been fairly demoralizing for quite a while to be a Democrat here. We weren't able to get people into office. Many people, even today, who are registered Republican in this extremely highly Republican district, are registered Republicans so that they can make a difference with their vote by voting in the primary for the less right-wing, extreme right-wing candidate. Well, within the last 4 years, that's begun to change. And when I thought about running, it's like, well, should I run for city council? You know, should I run for county board of supervisors? And I thought, you know what? I used to live in Tucson. I've got family around the state. I know many people around the state, and I know a little bit about working with folks at the state legislature. And we didn't have anyone who was running. And I thought, why not me? I've got that fire. I'm not raising kids anymore. I'm in a place in my life where I can devote myself and focus on helping to bring the needed positive change in this district. So I decided to run for State House.
So what will be some of your top priorities as a LD1 state representative?
My top priorities will be, number one, fully funding public education. Mm-hmm. My children went to public schools here, and we have some absolutely phenomenal schools here in my district and throughout the state. And yet we have not received, we don't have the level of funding that we had. Well, we just about have the level of funding that we had in 2008. It's 12 years later. We are at the bottom of the barrel throughout the country in the amount of money that we devote per student to our kids in public schools. And if you don't have good, decent, fair, high quality public schools, then you don't have a community, as far as I'm concerned. And that goes for the state. So that is my primary commitment, is to make sure that we prioritize taxes and funds to make sure that we are able to pay our teachers a fair wage. I mean, maybe
Right.
not the top, but at least in the middle instead of
Just
at
average.
48, 49, right? And also that the teachers can have a smaller class size and that they have the resources that they need and the facilities that they need to safely and effectively and joyously teach our children. So that's my number one issue. My next issue has to be healthcare and making sure that Arizonans are able to receive affordable healthcare, that everyone can get the healthcare they need, that we don't have to worry that we have to go to the emergency room in order to see whether or not what is going on. There's a lot that needs to happen with healthcare in Arizona. And some of that we can do at the state level. Some of it happens at the federal level, but we can do a lot here at the state level, and I'm fully committed to that. I've worked in healthcare since 1978. Started out working as a nursing assistant in a nursing home and taking care of folks who were World War I veterans, for instance. And it really opened my eyes as a healthy 18-year-old to what can happen when we get older. That these folks who'd lived lives of dignity and adventure and gravitas were now in a situation where they were prisoners in their own bodies. And it really made an impression on me. I then worked, while I was working my way through college, I worked at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. And for 5 years, I worked in a pediatric oncology unit. It was actually pediatrics for school age and adolescents, the sickest of the children. So children with all sorts of different, potentially terminal diseases. And I spent 5 years doing that as I worked my way through school. And I found it to be, I got so much more out of it than what I gave to them. It changed my life again and made me realize the value of treating each and every person with dignity and respect and valuing every single day that we have here on earth. So healthcare is my second issue.
Yeah. And never more important than now, is it really, in the era of COVID?
In the year of COVID, where in fact, when I hear people talk about how it's not that big a deal and why are you so afraid? It's not that. It's not about being afraid. It's about actually caring about people who could potentially get this disease. And so it's about having concern for your fellow man and woman. It's about civic decency, in my view. And, I don't want to judge people who, are concerned about getting back to work. I mean, look, I'm a massage therapist. So my business was completely flattened by this COVID. And gratefully, I also have a master's degree in counseling psychology. And I do coaching with folks, which I can do over the phone or I can do over Zoom. So I've got a little flexibility. So I have a lot of compassion for folks who are having difficulty because they want to get out and work. Nonetheless, I come from a healthcare background. And, as a breast cancer survivor who went through chemotherapy and could have potentially died because I had an immune system that was gone, and any little thing could have taken me out just as it did, and it could have with many of my patients all those years ago. I'm concerned about my fellow man and woman. I'm concerned about other people. And as a candidate, I believe that I need to model, and my campaign needs to model what should be happening at the top with our elected leaders, which is not happening at the top with our elected leaders, which is making this whole global pandemic, something we've never seen in our lifetimes before, much worse.
Worse than it needs to be.
Much worse than it needs to be. If we had strong leadership, confident leadership, informed leadership that kept us informed, then people would be willing to cooperate. I'm just going to pull out as an example doesn't compare exactly to the United States, but it can be brought up. Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And what she said when they realized that this global pandemic was coming their way, she said, we decided to hit it hard and to hit it fast and to make sure that we told everyone what we were doing. I can't do a Kiwi accent, sorry. And as long as she kept people informed of what was going on and why it was happening, people could buy into that. They did, they cooperated, and their death toll has been non-existent from the COVID virus for a long time. And in fact, they've been able to phase back in to opening their communities. And one person said to me, well, but you know, they're on an island and, you know, you can't go in there. I said, well, you can go, but you have to spend 14 days in quarantine, which is the science, which is based on facts, which is based on the truth of the medical science, which apparently in New Zealand they respect. And, you know, and eventually they will be able to open their borders and let folks back in.
There's definitely a war on science, that blaming the messenger rather than dealing with the problem itself. And there's some issues with an example being set nationally. You know, we don't need to mention his name. I think we all know what I mean. It's affecting how responsive people are being to taking the preventative measures we need to open safely, right?
I definitely hear about that happening. I myself have gone out in my community, not very much, but I have gone out in my community and I've gone out and I've worn a mask. But I think that my attitude is such that people don't even dream of accosting me or ridiculing me or whatever for wearing a mask. First of all, I don't really give them that opportunity because I'm mindful at 60 years old of how I'm presenting myself, what kind of a message I'm putting out, and what I'm allowing back in. So there is that. I've got a lot of years of experience in dealing with human beings. But secondly, you know, I'm not trying to tell anyone else what to do. I would really appreciate it if people would wear a mask when they're out in public, because it would model for the rest of the community that this is an okay thing to do. Here's the thing, Natalie. I think a lot of people are looking for leadership. And, you know, I didn't realize that because I've always been sort of an independent-minded, you know, little thing. You know, I'm out there, I'm doing my thing, and I have an opinion. Ask anyone who knows me, I've got an opinion. And all of the above. So it's always been easy for me to decide that I'm the one that needs to be responsible for me. I'm the one that needs to make the decisions for me. And I can't point a finger or attempt to blame, you know, whoever happens to be the flavor of the week in order to let go of my responsibility for my life. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible. And I'm grateful that I am responsible, because that means the good things that happen, I can take credit for. The things that I don't like so much, I can look and see what my part is in that happening, and I can course correct. But there are a lot of people, and in fact, a lot of people in LD1, in this district, who are not sure which way to go. A lot of folks who I know who've lived in Prescott, for example, for a very long time, some of the people who are registered Republicans so that they can have an influence, make a difference. There are a lot of folks who aren't as, I don't want to say the word bossy, but, you know, maybe as self-directed as I am. They're looking to see who's doing what.
Right.
And that's just not what I think needs to happen. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We need to be the leaders in our own lives and model out from within our own hearts who we are going to be, who we're going to represent, and what we're going to do. And because that is me, I feel like people kind of go, oh, okay, you know, and they kind of leave me alone. But I wish that others would do that as well, because if everyone was wearing a mask, then the people who are not wearing the masks would be the odd man or odd woman out. And
Yeah.
then they would be uncomfortable and start wearing the mask. That's not happening in the United States because we haven't had solid leadership that gives us the good scientific reasons, the factual reasons, the public health reasons why we need to behave a particular way. And so we've now got everybody running off in a gazillion different directions, which means for me and my campaign, and for a lot of us in Arizona, sadly, that we're going to need to continue to social distance, and for many of us, stay at home way longer than we would need to had we come together with unity and wise leadership, transparent, explaining what's going on so people could buy in. And because we haven't had that at the national level, and we've had mixed messages at the state level, it makes it very difficult to move forward with a unified strategy. And I want to just go back for 1 second regarding the nursing homes. That in this state, recently it was reported that the numbers of folks who are diagnosed with COVID in long-term care facilities and nursing homes was not going to be reported by the state. And to me, that is outrageous. You can say anything you want about it. It's a violation of HIPAA. It is not. It's a public health matter. It's a public health issue. And when I'm elected, one of the things that I would like to see happen is that we rebuild and prioritize and reinforce and bolster our public health facilities throughout the state.
Yeah, your LD1 is quite an interesting area that you're running to represent. It covers most of Yavapai County. Your biggest city is Prescott, and then you also include small towns like Anthem, Cave Creek, Carefree. So how do these interests vary? Like what are the diverse issues that these areas face?
Well, interestingly, in the 2018 election, I've looked at some of the statistics, and again, I'm sort of more the out here person, the big thinker, the communicator that way. I'm not the analytical detail person. I do have both sides of the brain working, but my preferred one is the one that I'm here with you doing. But I do know that in 2018, Prescott, the city of Prescott, or maybe it was just one of the districts, one of the precincts, went 50-50 for McSally and Cinema. And that was quite a surprise because, Prescott has been considered to be the heart of Republican country. Yeah. Barry Goldwater announced that he was running for president of the United States on the steps of the Yavapai County Courthouse. And look, I've got family members who are Republican. My grandparents were Republicans, and, they were good people. My grandfather was an attorney. He was a captain in the United States Navy. He was a Lincoln Scholar, and he practiced law in Springfield, Illinois. So I know a little something about the Republican Party and the history of the Republican Party. So a lot of my friends here, a lot of folks I know who grew up here and who lived here for a long time were Republicans from what I would call Republican classic era. And many of those folks are dear, dear friends of mine. But what's gone on in recent years has really changed the tenor of that party, and it now really belongs to the guy in the White House. And that doesn't represent almost anyone I know who's a Republican. It represents a point of view that does not consider unity of these United States to be of import, does not really bring people together, but actually divides people and then pits them against each other. So it's extremely toxic and it's not going to work. And we saw, and we're seeing the trends being that there are more and more folks voting for Democrats in this area. Now, how does that affect what goes on between the more rural parts of my district? I'm going to have to get out into the rural parts of my district, Baghdad, Ash Fork, Cordis Junction, Black Canyon City. I'm going to have to get out and make sure that people meet me. And I'm going to have to do some of that through Zoom, right, at this point in time. But when people meet you, they go, oh, okay, so she's a reasonable person. She's got some fire in her belly. She can stand up for herself. Maybe she can stand up for me and my interests and needs in the legislature.
Mhm.
So I need to reach out to those folks in the rural communities. Now, in terms of the differences between what's going on in Prescott and this sort of area, the sort of center, if you will, of LD1, especially per Karen Fan, who put a bill through saying that Prescott would always be in LD1. So where I live, I guess, is the center of LD1, no matter what, at least according to Arizona state law. But we have Maricopa County, northern Maricopa County,
Yeah.
in my district. And I would say the biggest difference between what's going on in this section and that section of the district, the section of the district that includes Cave Creek, Carefree, Black Canyon City, Anthem, is that y'all are part of Maricopa. And so your interests have to be respected as part of that vast county that includes such incredible diversity and growth, and has challenges that Yavapai County in and of itself does not have to address. So the differences are somewhat between the history of Prescott and Yavapai County, which is reflected more in some of the points of view of some folks in the more rural regions, where there's a little bit of fear about what it means to, provide, have a Democrat elected who wants to make sure that we're providing for public education, we're providing for healthcare. I have friends here who said they'll vote for whoever it is that says that they're going to keep their taxes low. They're going to keep their taxes low. And what I've explained to some of those folks is, well, it's really not keeping taxes low if what happens is we end up getting all of that put onto our insurance costs because people don't have insurance.
Yeah.
Or if we are paying for private prisons instead of public education and four-year universities. I am very committed to people doing well, and capitalism in its highest sense allows people to innovate and to create, and there's some healthy competition that goes on. But if what goes on is that folks just close their minds off to the idea that providing for government to provide services, that's taking my money away. I think we can look and see that there are many examples of states, of communities, of countries where there are taxes that are paid in for the public good, and it gives great relief, great ease of mind and heart to people who are living there, because they know that with one illness, they're not going to lose their house. They're not going to have to file bankruptcy. With one illness, they're not going to have to lose everything. I mean, even just partly. That fear that so many Americans live under of a major medical event, it's unacceptable. And for me, that there are folks who have done well, good for you. Perhaps you had a little bit better opportunities than some other folks. I think that's something that people need to keep in mind, that everything is not fair in this world, how things are set up. And some people do start out on third base while others start on home plate. If you look at my situation in this district, I'm not trying to be a victim, but I will say we've got an uphill battle. The Republicans who are running in the primary right now, there was a Clean Elections Commission candidate forum, and I was not invited. And the reason why I was not invited is because I am running in an uncontested primary. I'm the only Democrat running. I'm on the ballot, so I will be on the primary ballot, and I request that everyone choose, if you're an independent, that you choose that Democratic ballot and vote for me to impress upon everyone that I have plenty of support in this district, because then I will be on the general ballot with the two Republicans who make it through their primary. Nonetheless, they were all speaking. They got to ask all kinds of questions. My name was not mentioned once. I think they think that if you're in an uncontested primary, perhaps it means that you are already the incumbent, and so you have a voice. That's not the case here. But when those folks were speaking, they sure weren't saying anything about me. It's like, it's been so red here so long that I guess they don't think they need to be concerned about me, but they do. And but I am definitely starting out on home plate, while even though there are no incumbents in this race, which is great for me, they're still at least starting out on second base. Back.
Now, in terms of education, I know that's a major issue for you, is education. Vouchers make up a relatively small proportion of the state budget. Now, how do you feel in terms of the balance between public and private education? You mentioned earlier about, investing in services like healthcare or education to give people a more level playing field starting out. And education is one of the greatest playing field levelers that we can have. Where do you stand on that? Is the percentage of vouchers in the state budget to funding education?
When I was a kid, I went to Catholic schools, and my parents paid for us to go to Catholic schools. If you want to have your child in a private school in Arizona, then I believe that you need to work that out through private sources. Public education is meant to be funded through public monies and state land and all kinds of things that we've got going here in Arizona that are not completely covering what we need. But if public education is to be supported by taxpayer dollars, then we need to know how that money is being spent, and we need to know that it is being spent effectively. Public education does not have to be held to any of the same standards that public education does. Now, charter schools are supposed to be held to the same standards, but in Arizona, charter schools do not have the oversight that public schools do. I mean, charter schools are public schools. They're funded by public money, but they're not required to be accountable to us. And so there is a great bleeding out of taxpayer monies to charter schools, some of which have been owned by, Republican legislators who ended up, when those charter schools went belly up for whatever reason, ended up making millions of dollars on the sale of the buildings, the facilities that were part of those charter schools. To me, that is outrageous, and it needs to stop. So if you are able to send your children to private schools, then that should be funded by private money. And if you are, public taxpayer dollars that are meant for public education need to be spent on public education and need to be accounted for. We need to see it. Arizonans want transparency in their government. They want people to be honest, and they want us to just tell them the truth. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I'm going to make mistakes, but you know what? I will continue on. I am human, and I will do the best I can, but I will certainly do my very best to be honest, open, and transparent about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Prescott is sort of Republican central. It's a heavily Republican area, and there are far more registered Republicans in your LD1 district than there are Democrats. And now, what is your strategy for reaching out, I assume, not just to Democrats, of course, but to independents and to some Republicans to broaden your message? How are you going to connect with them?
Well, I'm going to connect with them in a number of different ways, Natalie. First off and foremost, that I've lived here a very long time, and I know these people. I know the people who are who've lived here a long time, who are the moderate Republicans, who've been registered Republicans, like my friend Janet said, she was born and raised here. And she said to me a few months ago, she said, when I turned 18, I just registered as a Republican because that's what you did around here. And so, I have to keep in mind that a lot of people are not as passionate or informed or interested in politics as I am. And in fact, a lot of young people are really turned off by politics because they believe that it's rigged and they're cynical about what's going on both sides. So the fact is that how our country runs right now is that we've got this two-party system, and it's essentially the only way that you can get elected. You know, we've tried third-party candidates at different levels, and it hasn't really worked very well. So I have a lot of friends here, registered Republicans, who have said to me, Judy, I wish there was no such thing as parties. I want to vote for the candidate. So I have friends who are going to vote for the candidate. I know a lot of people who are going to vote on issues. An issue up here that has been a big deal is Save the Dells, our beautiful granite dells here in Prescott, which anybody who's hearing this, if you haven't seen them, please come up and hike them. And it looks like there may be some sort of a agreement. It's non-binding right now, but all the major parties have apparently come to some kind of agreement. And there's a group called Save the Dells that came together to save our precious dells. And it is a nonpartisan group, and there are members who are Republicans, independents, and Democrats, but they're all united around the fact that they care about our environment and they want to maintain the beauty of our natural environment here. So a lot of those folks are people who I've known forever, whether they're Republican or not, they know me. They believe in me. And when they can see that I can actually win, that I have a chance to win, they're going to support me. Now, it is my campaigns and my job to build confidence in us through folks, to make sure that they don't doubt that we can do this. And this is how we're going to do it. I know these folks. I have reached out to them. Many of them are working with me. I am making phone calls to them. We are throwing virtual house parties. We are strategizing all the time on how to make sure that we engage folks on both sides of the aisle and the vast number of independent voters here. Also, I just lost my thought on that for a second. What was that? I've been doing so good. I've been talking so much. So, you know, I've been a volunteer in this community. And some of the places where I've volunteered are mixed, you know, with all kinds of Republicans, all kinds of Democrats, all kinds of independents. And we have come together around our shared interest in the arts, our shared interest in the environment, so that we get to know each other. We know each other, we believe in each other. And those folks, I'm going to darn well make sure that they know that I will be the candidate who will be there for everybody. My hashtag is #StallForAll. And what that means is that I can be a strong voice for everyone in this district. I may be a registered Democrat, and I do believe in democratic ideals, but I know that I have to represent everyone in my district. And I will do that. I will compromise where it's needed without ever compromising on my values. And I know that a lot of folks who are registered Republicans in this district agree with me on the matter of values, and that it's really more that there have been a lot of people who have been running things up here for a long time on the Republican side, who sort of give that message to the people who are elected to office to take to the state legislature to run things. I'm not owned by any of those folks. And I have a deep well of support across the aisle in this district. So it's really a matter of making sure that people have the confidence that we can win. And so on the numbers side, we know what we need to do to win, and we know the work that we need to do to get that win. And it involves a lot of volunteers getting together with my team and making virtual phone calls for a virtual phone bank, not virtual phone calls, making phone calls in a virtual phone bank, and texting in a virtual text bank. We know exactly what we need to do. So I want to put in a plug right now that if you've ever wanted to volunteer for a campaign and make a difference, now is the time. And you do not have to be in my district in order to do the volunteer work that we have all set up. We have the structure, we'll train you, and we'll put you to work. But we'll do that without you having to live here or even vote for me. And if you do that, and if we get the number of volunteers that we need, and it's a lot, then we will do everything we need to do to make sure that we win by 52%.
Now you're running in an uncontested primary as a Democrat, and you'll be the only Democrat running for LD1. Now
In any race, there's no one else running for Senate and no one else running for State House. If LD1 is going to be represented by a Democrat, it's going to be me.
Well, now do you recommend that instead of voting for an opposition party candidate, they only vote for you? Does this count somewhat like a two for one deal, or a double win, to advise people to only vote for you on the ballot and skip the other?
I do. And I ask people to, if you are not a registered Democrat and you are planning to vote in the primary, I'm urging you to vote, to pull a Democratic ballot and vote for me, so that we can show folks around here the gravitas of this campaign.
Right.
So you can show folks that, oh, no kidding, Judy is supported by a lot of people. I better think about it. Maybe I need to give her my business card, which is the kind of thing that's happened with me when I've gone to events and said, gone to events where you would think that it's mostly Republicans, and it may very well be mostly Republicans, but I go in and introduce myself and say I'm running for State House, and go up to people after the formal part of the event and introduce myself. And at first people might stand back like that, but eventually they realized, I'm a human being, and you can talk to me, you can work with me. And then they'd start handing me their cards and contacting me and saying, hey, how's it going? I'm glad you're running. So that's what it takes. We need to have a campaign that convinces people that we can do this. And we fully intend to do that. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, that's perfect. That's good. I did want to ask you to go back to healthcare. We talked a little bit about healthcare earlier, quite a bit actually. But I know that right now, according to the Arizona Department of Health and Human Services, we're at 80% ICU bed capacity. And that's just gone up, and it's only been a few weeks since the state's reopened. And all these things are not trending in the right direction. So I wanted to find out how your area, your district, what's your sense of the impact of COVID on healthcare resources in your district right now? And what are your concerns going forward?
Absolutely. Well, interestingly, it's a challenge to identify exactly what's going on in my district, because of the fact that part of my district is in Yavapai County and
Right.
part of it is in Maricopa, and the experiences are so vastly different in these two counties. So there's that, first of all. But I can tell you that I check virtually daily at the Yavapai County Community Health Services website to look and see what the status is of COVID-19 sufferers in our county. And the numbers are going up slowly right now. They're still going up. They're going up slowly. We did have that burst a few weeks ago. I don't know if you were aware that at a local academy for young women, that there was an outbreak, a hot spot at Mingus Mountain Academy. And, I think they're doing better with that. Again, most of the girls there are young and healthy. There was some talk about some folks attempting to keep it quiet for a while, and I'm into things being transparent, but I know that people can get real gripped when they're concerned about how it's going to look to the public, what's going on. We just have to stop living in fear, first of all, and that doesn't mean not wearing a mask, but it means we just need to be honest with each other. We've got to start with the facts. We've got to start with the truth and then go from there. So in this district, we have done, I think, in this part of the county, in the part of the county that's in my district, we've done a pretty good job of not going over the top. I know it's been very difficult in Maricopa County, and we don't know what's to come because we have all kinds of folks who, since things have opened up, are hanging out, and it's such a slippery slope because this is such an insidious challenge. This little fragments of RNA that can get into our bodies and kill us, and it seems so sort of flip. It's so difficult to tell, because there are many young people who are perfectly healthy, and then you hear 2 days later, they're having a stroke and dying. Not necessarily in this district so far, but it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for a very long time. And I know that local hospitals, YRMC, both East and West, had tents set up for COVID patients. I think so far they're handling it pretty well from what I'm hearing. I'm not as clear on what's happening with folks in the Maricopa part of my district, what the numbers are. It's difficult to tease that out. But as far as I'm concerned, we are in the middle of a pandemic with a novel coronavirus, which means that we don't know what all it can do. We don't know all the ramifications. And while we may have done a fairly good job of making sure that the curve was flattened, and luckily in most of my district we are fairly rural, so it's not like we were so tightly packed as they are in places like Brooklyn. But in my district as well, both in Maricopa and in Yavapai, we have lots of older folks. We have some of the people who are in the most vulnerable populations. And so I think a lot of them have been staying home. And we need to continue to model that. And I'm hopeful that we will not get our ICUs overrun up here. And, my heart goes out especially to the folks on the reservation.
Yeah, some of the worst hit areas. I know the official numbers aren't in yet, but we're looking at unemployment claims like nationwide. By the time, we'll probably be looking at around 15%. I mean, most people are forecasting between 15, 18% national unemployment. And a lot of people have lost their employer insurance. And a lot of people are losing it. And now I know that you support an immediate public buy-in for people who've lost their employer insurance. Do you think in this era and of not just COVID, but the economic hardship, that's the result, that people will be more open to your position on an immediate public buy-in option for healthcare?
Well, yes, I think so. I think that a lot of people are realizing that the $1 trillion tax cut that we did, back in the day, that was rammed through, didn't really roll down as much. There wasn't a whole lot then coming back, being saved in people's paychecks. Again, I told you about this friend of mine who said, Judy, I want to vote for whoever it is that's going to keep my taxes low.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing about taxes being low is if you are then stressed out because you don't have health care and you are then, having to file for bankruptcy, then it really doesn't do you much good to have saved $20, on a paycheck every couple of weeks. I mean, I'm not thumbing my nose at that. I respect people who are careful and earnest, and mindful about their money and being responsible. I totally get that. But this is a system that's not working. And, COBRA hasn't worked. What we've had, in healthcare is, when you lose your health insurance or you lose your job, that you would have COBRA to carry you over. Well, it hasn't worked very well, and it's been very expensive, and there have been lots of problems with it. It's not like having your own insurance. So to have a public option, to have, immediate buy-in is the direction that this country is going. What Bernie Sanders has been talking about, it's very legitimate what he's talking about, that we need to provide health care for everyone. And if we have a system that's set up where people can get preventative care and get the health care they need at the start, then we don't have the expenses later on down the line. If we
Right.
educate people on healthcare, if we make sure that people understand that if you smoke, you're gonna have to pay more than other people. You'll be taxed more, whatever it is. That if you're doing things that we know that science has shown us is unhealthy, that is something that you're going to have to end up being responsible for at some level, more so than folks who are doing what they need to do. It cannot be that we've got a system where I got a job where my employer covers my health insurance, so I don't care. I don't care about the rest of you. Buck up, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's not how it works. We've got so many people who have lost their jobs, who work for tips, who are running a sole proprietorship, who are trying to pay their health insurance. Not everyone is employed by a large corporation or a company that's providing all that. And we've really got to look at, how different should it be between people in this country? Why should one person have this fabulous health insurance and another person not have any insurance at all, not have the opportunity to get their basic healthcare needs met? Which is why, Natalie, I absolutely believe that we need to have education and healthcare for our mothers to be and for our children, and that we bring people up and that people have access to healthcare education and healthcare that allows them to grow up healthy, so we don't have all these ridiculous expenses later on, whether it be from hospitals where people are going in. And, I have a client who, her father's father, who died last year at 98, had been going in every year for these MRIs, which he really didn't need, but his insurance covered it, so he went in to get them just in case. That's not how you run a healthcare system. Look, I could really get into the weeds here, but the bottom line is everyone needs to have access to affordable healthcare that provides education and healthcare at the preventative levels right from the start. And we need to continue to transform this healthcare system so that we provide options for healthcare that actually help people to heal mind, body, spirit. Mental health care mental health care is healthcare. Women's health care is healthcare. It's not like, oh, that's a pre-existing condition, or, oh, that's something else, or that's not within the parameters that somebody who is not a doctor and is not my healthcare provider is deciding based on some algorithm whether or not I get a treatment. And in order for me to get the treatment that I need to keep calling my insurance company and going farther and farther up the line until either they give up or I give up. That's outrageous. And we can't have that, and we need to transform it. We need to create a healthcare system in Arizona, and we can, that creates a robust public health system where we have community health clinics, just like Yavapai County Community Health Services, which I think is doing the best job it can under the circumstances. But there needs to be a place where everyone can go and get the scientific information, where it's not based on, am I going to be paying for, am I going to be paying for someone who is an absolute middleman between insurance and pharmaceuticals that I'll never see, and I'm paying, for them to have this job where they're, pushing paper and doing it, well, that's not our system. You've got to go through this route first because it's got to come by my desk. Because if it doesn't come by my desk, then I'm obsolete and I don't have a job and I don't have health insurance, right? So it's just insane, and it's got to change.
Yeah, it definitely is. It certainly is. There's a lot of inefficiencies there at so many levels. I actually do wonder whether or not how many people are getting sick with COVID and never being diagnosed because they don't have insurance and just staying at home and just, running it out and hoping for the best, and maybe don't even know they have it. And so, how much undercounting is there? It definitely is I think that maybe some underreporting there in the extent of COVID in the country, not just in Arizona, but nationwide.
Absolutely. And not only staying at home and toughing it out, but staying at home and dying.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's definitely happening. And we know, and I know that my district is, we're not the most diverse district in the state or in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about everyone. And there is clearly a racial divide in how this treatment is unfolding and who is suffering the worst. We're talking, so many of the workers who are essential workers in this crisis do not have any kind of health insurance whatsoever. Yeah. They're getting paid less than minimum wage in many cases.
Or they've got a $5,000 deductible and can't afford to, before they can even, get the benefit of it because they have a deductible to meet.
It reminds me of when I was doing the research to look forward to envisioning creating a state board of massage therapy in Arizona. Mm-hmm. I looked at the laws of 29 states. There were 29 states that already had a massage therapy law on the books before Arizona got ours. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I spent months poring over the language of these bills, in legal dictionaries and libraries, learning what does this mean? Oh, that's boilerplate. Oh, that says shall, that says may. These differences in legal language. And so when we put together our bill, we were able to include a lot of the best things that had been there from other state laws. And we were able to correct some of the problems that had been created in other state laws. We are not we're not the first country to deal with this massive issue of public health and making sure that we have health care for all. We can look at other systems and we can take the best of those and we can incorporate that into whatever the best is that we've already got here. And there are a lot of changes that need to take place, and it really does not have to be all that difficult to make sure that people have basic health care and that they don't have to worry that they're going to lose their house or go through a bankruptcy in order to stay alive.
So what are the next steps? Where are you at in your campaign, and what are your most immediate concerns now?
My most immediate concern right now is filling out our volunteer team for our field program. I'm a first-time candidate, and in the last couple of months, I brought on a new campaign manager. I had a wonderful campaign manager whom I love and adore, who put in a lot of structure and organization for this campaign. But let me tell you, she was a first-time campaign manager and I was a first-time candidate. But just a lot of things that neither of us knew. And we had that conversation that a change needed to take place. So in early April, I hired a wonderful campaign manager who literally has been able to take our financial aspect of fundraising to a whole new level. And it's what I needed. It's like, what we were doing before was like the dinosaur age. And what we're doing now is, like beyond rocket ships. And we're doing great with our fundraising now. And I realize that that's something that everybody looks to see whether or not you're a viable candidate. Well, guess what? I am. And that's exciting. And I'm running as a traditional candidate, Natalie. The reason why is because in order to have a chance to win in this, exceptionally red district where it's been red for 20 years, I need to have every possible legal advantage that I can. So I determined to run traditionally, which means the candidate spends a lot of time earning votes, earning the confidence of voters, and fundraising, asking folks to donate. And that's what's happening is with my new campaign manager, we've been able to do that. She has excellent experience. Her name is Amber Faith, and she was the call time manager for Corey Books, who in March of this year became the mayor-elect of Tempe, beating out a two-time incumbent. Both were Democrats. So she was on that winning team, and she's instituted a lot of She's got 7 years experience in fundraising, in campaigning. And guess what? She turned 23 years old today.
Happy birthday.
I know, she's wonderful. Happy birthday, Amber. And so the thing is, I've got some young people on my campaign who, social media and internet technology, they have no fear of whatsoever. It's the water they swim in. And so they have a complete can-do attitude about that. Nothing stops them with that. They might stop and think about things. I'm learning from them, but nothing stops them. And now that we've got our call time and fundraising in place, a structure in place, because we've got someone who has the experience and who is helping us with that. Now what matters is that we get our field team filled out. The numbers are very difficult in this district, and even though I know lots of folks, there are lots of folks who I don't know, and there is a data-driven strategy that has been tried and true. And so we have access to that data-driven strategy, and we are going to move forward with that. And what it means is that, and I'm saying this to all of you out there right now, that if you want to bring change to Legislative District 1, positive change, then I ask you to go to my website at judystahl.com, JUDYSTAHL.com, and go to our volunteer button, look on there and sign up for the virtual phone banking, virtual text banking. We will train you. You will get great skills from doing this, and you will have a wonderful, passionate time reaching out to folks and telling them why they ought to elect me, why we need this change. And we need hundreds of people.
Yeah.
We need hundreds. And guess what? We've got hundreds of people because we're running a virtual campaign right now, and we know how to do this. And so it can be any of all y'all's friends from throughout the country who want to see Arizona turn blue. Because when I'm elected, this is my prediction, Natalie. When I win, Arizona turns blue. Now I know that there are folks that say it's all about Maricopa County, and Maricopa County, of course, is in my district. But if we can do what we're doing here, if we can turn this ship in this red district, and if we can elect just one Democrat, there'll still be a Republican in this district. But if we can elect just one to bring some balance to this district, that's going to help Mark Kelly. That's going to help Joe Biden. That's going to help turn Arizona blue. So I don't care where you are in the country, down ballot races matter, especially in a battleground state. And there is literally, I don't believe there's a state that's more of a battleground state, more right there than we are. And we're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, no, that sounds good. So anybody who's interested in volunteering for your campaign should go to judystahl.com. It's on my virtual background there, and can click on the button to volunteer, right? And can
Correct.
To do phone banking and work with your campaign in some way.
Yes.
I don't know. No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to say that what we really need right now are the folks to sign up for virtual phone banking and virtual text banking. And that allows for my lovely introverts to get involved because they can text. They don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So if you want to help, if you want to make this difference, I'm asking all of you to do this. And there will be a training. You'll get training. And I promise you, you'll get more out of it than you put into it because we enjoy ourselves. We are having fun in this campaign. But beyond that, you can write postcards to voters, which are wonderful. My daughter received one recently from the campaign and called me and said, "Mom, I got a postcard from your campaign thanking me for attending this event." You know, it was really sweet. So there's that personal touch. And then also, and I would love to have this happen in Maricopa right now, especially, and I'll look forward to when we're back open and able to come down and see you guys and be there in person because I love that too. But for now, for folks to throw virtual house parties, my team has it down. We have a whole system set up. You decide that you want to throw a virtual house party, you can throw a meet and greet, or you can throw a fundraiser. We're always looking at raising funds, but you can throw a meet and greet so people can get to know me, or you can throw a fundraiser where, you know, we work to try and raise a specific amount of funds and show that this was a successful event. and you can bring folks in from all over. And we've had some interesting guests. I was at one of my house parties a couple weeks ago, and my firstborn, who lives in Washington, D.C., was able to attend our virtual house party. And at some point they said, Joey, would you like to say something about your mom? Why don't you take a minute and speak? And he spoke, I know he's my son, but he spoke extremely eloquently about what it's like to be living in Washington, D.C. with his wife, where he lives, where he said that you can cut it with a knife, the rancor in the air, the division. And he's lived there. He started at George Washington University, graduated Prescott High School in 2006. So he moved to DC in the fall of 2006 and has lived there ever since, except for his study abroad year where he lived in Cairo, Egypt. And he said, you can cut it with a knife, the awful feeling in the air in DC. And that when he sees people not wearing masks and, talking about, that their freedom matters more than your health. And what he does, what my son does, is he works in international relief and development. He graduated from the George Washington University Elliott School of International Affairs. And he runs, with his company, they manage and run refugee camps on the Syrian border. They are involved with folks in Yemen. They are building infrastructure projects in Iraq and Syria. It is serious stuff. And he's been around people in Iraq who have nothing. They have nothing. They're not worried about wearing a mask. So to hear him speak and then say, my mom and dad raised me to be someone who cares about people and cares about the world, and that's what I'm doing. And so I think y'all should vote for my mom. And it was a very successful fundraiser. In fact, someone said that he ought to make a commercial for us. And so you never know who's going to show up at one of our house parties. But I would encourage you all to consider hosting a house party, because we help you with the invitation. We do all of the internet technology. We meet with you 3 times beforehand. You just invite your friends, and you don't even have to get them set up with hors d'oeuvres and drinks because they're in their own home.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is definitely. I'm so happy to hear you're using digital technology as such an instrumental part of your campaign, and texting as well. I know that a lot of calls a lot of it just goes to voicemail, and a lot of emails just go straight into a folder on Gmail that you only check every couple of weeks. So I'm glad that you're using new tools. At this point, does anybody have any questions for Judy? If anybody does, please just open up that little chat box and let me know. So I'm going to open it up to the floor here. Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Judy before we let her go? Well, I don't see anybody yet. Let's see, we've got, yeah, I don't see anybody popping up right now, but I think that it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I think that you would be a credit to LD1. Actually, I've got a message from Anna. She says, "Great job, Judy."
Thank you.
Anna. I'm so happy that you're using these tools, and you sound like you've got a real grasp on your campaign. I'm sorry that this is extraordinary circumstances you found yourself in, as have many candidates and people trying to get propositions on the ballot in 2020. And for them, this has been really difficult. The recent Arizona Supreme Court decision that only physical signatures can be counted, but we will persevere. And
well, can I tell you something about that real quick?
Go ahead.
My campaign received a reach out from the Outlaw Dirty Money campaign, which I endorsed last year. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the devastation of having collected hundreds of thousands of signatures for this crown jewel of Arizona politics, our ballot propositions. The fact that we the people can make decisions that then the politicians are really not able to undo. It's very difficult for the politicians to undo it. So all of this work had gone into the Outlaw Dirty Money campaign, and then with the COVID virus, it's not looking good. So we had received a reach out from the Outlaw Dirty Money campaign saying that Terry Goddard, who is the director, the head of Outlaw Dirty Money, was going to send a letter to the governor and to President Fan of the Senate and Speaker Bowers of the House of Representatives of the Arizona State House, and ask them to make a one-time exception to grandfather in those 225,000 plus signatures that have been collected for 2022. Now, there would be things to work out, like what if someone died? What if they moved away? I get it. But that's 225,000 signatures of Arizonans who want to see this change. So what they requested was that you as an individual reach out and send Terry a letter saying yes to the letter, take it to the governor with my name. So what I did was, when I saw that, I reached out to my campaign and I said, this is all hands on deck. We're going to write up a letter. We're going to send it out to our list of our supporters and followers, and we're going to ask them to take action. And guess what? They did. We spoke to Terry Goddard just a few days ago, and he told me, he said, Judy, you have got some kind of an operation going there. Your people reached out. He said at one point, the day after we sent out that email, we had over 100 responses in the queue from your campaign. He said these people reached out and helped us with our numbers. They said they were from the Stall for All campaign, and they made a nice comment, an optimistic, supportive comment. He said, you have got some kind of an operation going there. And Natalie, it's honestly, as a first-time candidate, it really occurred to me the power of a campaign, because we can mobilize thousands of people on our list to take action that makes a difference. When one person calls a legislator, they say that you're speaking, you could be speaking for 1,000 to 10,000 people because you're the one making the phone call. If we have hundreds of people on my campaign reaching out, then we're getting into the millions in terms of the influence that they can have, how it expands. So I'm very proud of what's going on, and we invite everyone to join this campaign and be part of this movement to bring needed change to Arizona. And certainly there's no more worthy cause in the state than Outlaw Dirty Money.
Yeah, very, huge bipartisan support for that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Judy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined. This recording of this will remain on Facebook, and we'll also be posting the video of the Zoom on Black Mountain News, blackmountain-news.com. If you want to check that out, and go visit judystahl.com and help her out and start volunteering, and let's get a Democrat in LD1 for a change. And Jane Doyle says thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Be well.
Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.